With Radio Algeria International, you will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
President Abdelmadjid Tebboune has recalled the honorable battles waged by Algerian war veterans against the then French colonization on the occasion of the National War Veteran or Mujahid Day, commemorating the double anniversary of the attacks of Northern Constantine and the holding of the Somme Congress. The African Union's Peace and Security Council has adopted the report made by the delegation's members of its mission to South Sudan, led by Algeria. And US President Donald Trump has offered security guarantees to Ukraine before an agreement is reached between Moscow and Kiev. And those were the major developments. Now the full news edition. I'm Asya Bakar. Good afternoon, and I'm accompanied today by my colleague Masoud Sharfi. Hi, Masoud.
Hello, Asya.
The President of the Republic, مساء Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has recorded the honorable battles waged by Algerian war veterans against the then French colonization, highlighting their heroic ability to inflict heavy and painful losses on the colonial army. On the occasion of the National War Veteran or Mujahid Day, commemorating the double anniversary of the attacks of Northern Constantine and the holding of the Somme Congress on August 20th, 1955-1956, the President of the Republic made the statement. He hailed the war veterans' determination to defeat the colonization's heavily armed forces by taking the initiative to impose the arena and timing of the military confrontation on the enemy, which led to the widening resonance of the November 1st, 1954 revolution. The President said on Mujahid Day, Algerian people also commemorate the 69th anniversary of the Somme Congress held on August 20th, 1956 during Algerian War for Independence. At that stage, the leaders of the revolution decided to meet in Ifri Uzlagan to support the revolution with coordination mechanisms, frameworks, and organizational structures capable of achieving its goals. The President of the Republic said these goals were defined in the November 1st declaration, which proud Algerian people embraced and rallied around. He said that this double anniversary is an occasion to remember the great struggles, immense sacrifices, and painful suffering that the people endured with patience and courage during harsh, brutal war they waged, believing in victory, truth, and freedom. He added that this day is a moment to express gratitude to the martyrs and war veterans and loyalty to the immortal November message in Algeria built by the will of patriots. These patriots, the President added, contributed to the building up of a proud and strong Algeria, keen on the independence of its decision and the preservation of its sovereignty, and moving towards achieving the goals of a true sustainable development.
The Minister of Interior, Local Authorities and Territorial Development, Brahim Merad, accompanied by the Minister of Water Resources, Taha Derbel, have paid a visit to the eastern province of Tbissa following an earthquake which hit yesterday the area. The ministerial delegation met with local authorities, elected representatives, citizens and civil society in the communes of Negrin and Furkan. Mr. Merad reassured that no losses were recorded from the earthquake, measuring 5.8 on Richter scale, and emphasized that his visit, instructed by President Abdelmadjid Tebboune, reflects the state's commitment to stand by citizens. Mr. Merad reaffirmed the state's commitment to address development gaps across all countries' provinces through various programs.
The African Union's Peace and Security Council has adopted the report made by the delegation's members of its mission to South Sudan, led by Algeria, who ensures the Council's revolving presidency. In a communique, the Council said it had informed by the mission's members following a recent visit to South Sudan about the progress achieved as part of the implementation of the reactivated accord on the settlement of the conflict in the country and on the following up of the transitional process there. It stressed that the mission delegation's report would back the future decisions and measures to be taken by the Council to provide an efficient assistance to South Sudan's National Unity Government to contribute to the success of the transitional period within the deadline set. It emphasized that the visit by its delegation's members had carried key messages expressing the Council's support and solidarity with the government and people of South Sudan in their efforts aimed at restoring peace and security in the country. In this respect, the African Union's Peace and Security Council urged the various parties in South Sudan to get involved in high-level dialogue with the support of the AU Commission, while insisting that dialogue remains the only means of reaching a lasting settlement of all the disputes. It's worth recalling that during its visit to South Sudan, the delegation's members led by Algeria's representatives to the AU, Mohammed Khalid, met with several South Sudanese officials, including President Salva Kiir and representatives of the National Unity Government. They also met with the representatives of the Intergovernmental Authority for Development.
The members of the A3+ group at the Security Council, Algeria, Somalia, Sierra Leone, Guyana, have called for the respect of the roadmap in South Sudan, paving the way for the holding of elections in December 2026, stressing the need for political will and sufficient resources to finance the institutions entrusted with organizing the voting. Speaking on behalf of the A3+ during a Security Council meeting devoted to the situation in South Sudan, a member of Somalia's permanent mission to the UN in New York, Mohammed Rabi Youssef, praised South Sudan's recent commitment with regional partners, but warned the initial tension threatened peace and may question the credibility of the voting, urging for dialogue, commitment, and international support.
The A3+ acknowledges the recent steps taken by the government of South Sudan in addressing the challenges facing the country, including its engagement with UNMISS, the African Union, IGAD, and other partners. We welcome the recent visit of the AU Peace and Security to Juba, led by Algeria. Despite these efforts, we remain concerned about growing tensions within the transitional government. These developments risk undermining the progress achieved under the revitalized agreement by the transitional government and the prospects for a peaceful and credible election. We urge all parties to resolve their differences through inclusive political dialogue and to uphold commitments of the revitalized peace agreement. South Sudan stands at a critical juncture. The leadership must ensure that the revised electoral roadmap for the election rescheduled to take place in December 2026 stays on track. This milestone will only be possible if the necessary political will and resources are dedicated to supporting the institutions responsible for delivering credible elections, including through necessary assistance of the international community.
The A3+ group welcomed AU efforts to support South Sudan's 2026 elections and urged for international support. They voiced concern over rising violence, called for stronger UNMISS human rights support, and highlighted the necessity to face up economic and humanitarian challenges.
The A3+ welcomes the African Union Commission's efforts to prioritize electoral support through the AU Peace Fund. We further urge the international community and member states to support South Sudan in its efforts to organize credible, transparent, and inclusive elections in 2026. With regard to the security situation in South Sudan, the A3+ is alarmed by the surge in violence in Upper Nile, Jonglei, the Equatorius, and the Warab. In this regard, it's essential to strengthen the human rights component of UNMISS. On the economic and humanitarian front, we recognize the government's engagement with the IMF to strengthen macroeconomic stability and implement financial management reforms. We also note with concern the humanitarian situation with nearly 7.7 million people facing acute food insecurity, a cholera outbreak, and reoccurring floods, which further compound vulnerabilities. We further call on the international partners to urgently support the government's response to both internal and regional crises, including the increasing number of returnees and displaced people from neighboring Sudan.
The group also emphasized that an approach based on partnerships, inclusivity, and respect for sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity of South Sudan represented the most promising path to peace.
And now, a sit-in staged in solidarity with Palestinian journalists and media personnel has taken place at the Tahar Jawad Press Center here in Algiers to denounce the Israeli assassination of 238 Palestinian journalists in Gaza since October 2023 in blatant violation of international laws and conventions. In his speech made on the occasion, the president of the National Organization of Algerian Journalists, Slimane Abdouche, stated that this sit-in comes following a new despicable crime recently committed in Gaza by the Israeli savage attacks, during which 6 media figures were assassinated. He added that these are shocking figures that reveal the extent of this systematic aggression carried out against the media in Palestine and against the international press. He further called on independent journalists, wherever they are, to unite their efforts to denounce these crimes to the international public opinion and pressure the Israeli occupation to allow international journalists access to the Gaza Strip, as well as to expose the crimes of the occupation. Speaking on behalf of the Palestinian Media Corporation, Mr. Azzeddin Arwantisi affirmed that the Palestinian journalists today are subjected to systematic crimes committed by the Israeli occupation's army aimed at silencing the voice of truth and erasing the traces of the ongoing genocide. He added that targeting journalist tent last week is a crime that adds to the previous premeditated and deliberate assassinations perpetrated against 238 Palestinian journalists and their families. The Israeli crimes have affected more than 420 other journalists, suffering varying degrees of injury, some of which have resulted in permanent disabilities and amputations, stressing that the occupying forces are currently holding 48 journalists in inhuman conditions, in addition to bombing media outlets and destroying their equipment, cameras and broadcast vehicles in flagrant violation of international laws and conventions guaranteeing the protection of journalists.
UN President Donald Trump has said the U.S. would help guarantee Ukraine's security in any deal to end the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but failed to elaborate. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky returned to the White House yesterday, Monday, to meet U.S. President Donald Trump for fresh talks aimed at ending the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Several European leaders also attended in Washington, the meeting days after Trump met Russia's President Vladimir Putin in Alaska. At a news conference after the meeting, Zelensky said part of the security guarantee would involve a $90 billion armed deal between the U.S. and Ukraine. The Ukrainian president told reporters that security guarantees for Kyiv would probably be worked out within 10 days. Following the summit, Trump posted on Truth Social that he had called Putin to begin arranging talks between the Russian leader and Zelensky. Trump said that following such bilateral meeting, whose venue has yet to be set, there would be a trilateral where the U.S. president would join them. He also said that during last week's Alaska summit, Putin had accepted that there would be security guarantees for Ukraine as part of any peace deal. A Putin advisor said afterwards that Trump and Putin spoke for 40 minutes by phone on Monday.
And as the UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, affirmed that 80% of Gaza's population has been subjected to evacuation orders issued by the Israeli occupying authorities, as at least 25 Palestinians have been killed in new airstrikes carried out by the Israeli occupation against various areas of the territory. Several others were wounded in the bombardments that targeted notably various districts of the town of Gaza. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and to Spain now. Thousands of firefighters backed by soldiers and water-bombing aircraft have battled more than 20 major wildfires raging across western Spain, where officials say a record area of land has already been burned. Spain and neighboring Portugal have been particularly affected by forest fires spurred by heat waves and drought blamed on climate change that have hit southern Europe. 2 firefighters were killed on Sunday, one in each country, both in accidents, taking the death toll to 2 in Portugal and 4 in Spain. Spain's Civil Protection Chief said 23 blazes were classified as operational level 2, meaning they pose a direct threat to nearby communities. The fires now entering their second week are concentrated in western regions of Castilla and Leon, Galicia and Extremadura, where thousands of people have been forced to flee their homes. More than 343,000 hectares of land have been destroyed this year in Spain, setting a new national record according to the European Forest Fire Information System. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. That's it for our news bulletin. I invite you now to listen to a program devoted to World Humanitarian Day.